the proceedings on the very final day as part of the Congress of 3C's Theologians. Today's meeting is devoted to the place and the role for theology to play, theology in a dialogue with modernity. And we called this meeting a forum of 3C's theologians because theologians from various 3C's countries will be speaking about theology as such, hopes, threats, tasks ahead, tasks theology nowadays is facing. So I wanted to welcome all of you who are here with us in the University Hall at the Catholic University of Lublin of John Paul II. I want to welcome especially Father Rectors, Vice Rectors, Deans of Catholic universities and universities that boast theology faculties, as well as our honored guests from abroad, from their respective theology faculties at their universities. I wanted to invite, in the following order, Father Professor Grzegorz Chojnacki, Dean of Theology Faculty of Szczecin University. We may applaud Father Professor now. The next speaker is Father Professor Janez Vodica from Slovenia. As well as Father Professor Adrian Podaro, Pro-Dean for Theology Faculty of Orthodox Theology from the University Babeș-Bolyai in Cluj-Napoca in Romania. Our next honored guest is Father Professor Wilhelm Dancza from the Catholic Theology Faculty, also from Romania. With us today is also Deacon Professor Benaš Ulevicius from Kaunas in Lithuania. Please welcome. Last but not least, our own Father Professor Marcin Kowalski, head of Heschel Center of the Catholic University of Lublin. Dear honored guests, so as not to take too much time, I will tell you about the proceedings today. First, the speakers will speak, will listen to the remaining speakers, will have a discussion, and then at 11:45, quarter to 12, we have a signing of declaration on cooperation of 3C's theologians. I wanted to welcome Father Professor Grzegorz Chojnacki. Father Professor is a graduate of Pontificate Theology Faculty in Wrocław. This is where he did his master's, as well as Theology Faculty in Paderborn, where he did his PhD degree. He did his postdoctorate at Szczecin University. He is now a Dean of Theology Faculty at Szczecin University and the Director of Theological Sciences Faculty at this very university. Father Professor is a member of a Scientific Evaluation Committee, PKA Expert, Vatican Avepro Commission. He's a member of numerous scientific committees, associations, theological committees, and privately a friend of the Dean of Theology Faculty at KUL. So, Father Professor, please take the floor. Thank you for the invitation, ad rem, because I believe I only have 15 minutes, Father Professor. That's right. I wanted to tell you about elements of internationalization, evaluation of scientific papers in the field of theology. First of all, there are charters, also called Magna Carta of universities, that bring together various universities from abroad. And the biggest Magna Carta as such was signed in 1987 in Bologna, and 380 signatories signed it. A lot of university, a lot of higher education establishment. In 2020, it was renewed. The document was revived, and this year, several dozen universities also signed this document in Łódź, at the University of Łódź. This Magna Carta is based upon three pillars, and I wanted to stress that the pillars are three keywords. One, freedom from, being linked with, inseparate with, and three, freedom to debate. I will try to quote fragments of three elements. Research has to be morally, intellectually free from all political influence and economic influence. Two, teachings and research should be inexplicable and not linked with the external factors. They should be striving to understand the world. And three, universities should be a place for free inquiry, debate, and should be open to dialogue and reject all elements of intolerance. And you may say these are very fine ideas, and a lot of universities follow these principles, but there are examples where the freedom from and the freedom to inquiry and debate is being disturbed also in mainstream, and we've seen such cases where lecturers are not invited to universities because they do not represent the a particular line of thought. So we have grounds to show university as a place of science, as a place that has shared goals. In terms of international level, from the Church's perspective, I believe that meetings such as the International Days of the Youth in Lisbon this year also serve to show scientific reality the way it is, to meet with students and representatives of academia. And this is what happened. Pope Francis had a meeting with students this year. He met with academic of university students, and he was intrigued. Apart from his speech, he was inspired by the rector of Lisbon University, who said this: university is not there to survive as an institution. Universities are there to meet the challenges of the present and the future. And the Pope added, self-reflection, controlling your desires, makes you, the desires make you perceived the reality in a disturbed way. The Father Rector of Lisbon University put it very bluntly, but these words matter to us. We shouldn't be only trying to survive as institutions. We, representatives of universities, should meet the challenges of modern day, locally and internationally. Before the pandemic broke out, Pope Francis said, and then he said it again and again, that he wanted to create a global educational pact. He came up with this initiative. This is similar to the Magna Carta that I've mentioned, and he said that is based or founded upon 7 principles that will allow us to better understand economy, politics, progress and development. 7 pillars of the Global Education Pact are the following. First and foremost, this is prioritizing the human being in the education process, listening to the voices of children, involving girls in education, acknowledging the principles of parenting, as well as being hospitable and ready to help those in need, those who need help the most. I was wondering which universities, which institutions of common church were to take part in this Global Educational Pact initiative. Because of my function that I served, I happened to go to Rome, and I talked with education experts there, and they told me that they analyzed university regulations, and they weren't really interested in this global pact. I addressed the decanterium of the human development. They told me that they dealt with ecology. I appeal to my own institution, AVEPRO, but there is only one president and 4 members of the team in Rome, and they are overworked. They have too much to do in terms of certification, visiting Catholic universities in the Bolognian process, so they're busy with that. And using the example of Catholic University of Lublin and this Congress, we could say that we are carrying out this global educational pact at the practical level, we as representatives of 3Cs countries. So this will be all. I think this initiative of the 3Cs countries matters, is important, because Slovakia and Hungary are not at sea, but they are still part of the 3Cs. The evaluation in the Polish reality, but my colleagues undergo evaluation in other countries as well, because faculties at state universities are often evaluated the same we are. They are evaluated, they are assigned a proper category. In terms of Poland, I wanted to remind everyone, and also tell my friends from abroad, deans, that there are 3 evaluation criteria in Poland. 1, academic level, artistic level of academic activity, and this involves conference materials, periodicals, journals, and monographies. In terms of periodicals, they have from 20 to 200. They give from 20 to 200 points to the financial effect of research activities, how much money a university is being allocated, and then the algorithms calculating how many points they have to at their disposal, and 3, funding. These are the main 2 that are shown. Not impact of science on science, but the impact of science on this cultural, political, economic sphere. And the evaluation of universities in Poland took 5 years. It was supposed to take 2 years, from 2017 to 2022. This is how long it took, and I have to say that in terms of disciplines related to church and theology, we did quite well. In terms of the category A, canon law did the best. 3 universities received 2A+, and 1A. 2/3 received A+ category, which is very high. Chemical sciences have 25 units undergoing evaluation. 10 of them received A+, 7 A, and the remaining ones. There were also the 3rd place on the podium, 11 units theological science, 4A+, 7A, 1B+. So I think, all things considered, we did quite well, and I wanted to express my solidarity with Dean Kempa from the Silesian University. I think not just me, but all of us should extend our solidarity and say that you shouldn't get rid of theology faculty if it's doing so well, because theology faculties are doing very well. In this case, I wanted to stress the periodicals. This is the 3rd point I wanted to address, that has to do with internationalization. As I said, the points of the national and international periodicals refers to the periodicals receiving from 20 to 200 points, over 30,000. 2,000 are ones which publish in Poland, were English-speaking ones that have their own affiliation in Poland. So the reports that have been put together come from 2019, 2021, as well as 2023, and they have a significant impact on the first criterion in terms of the reports from 2017, theological sciences. A big devaluation, depreciation of theological papers could be observed. We did poorly at the beginning, as if theology in Poland didn't exist and didn't have eminent scientists that we know in person. Then, not because we're pretentious, we put in a claim for some periodicals to be re-evaluated and appreciated, and this is exactly what happened in 2021. I think that theological or canon law of family sciences, biblical sciences journals were appreciated in 2023. What does it look like? In terms of theological sciences, we have 4 journals with the top of the points, 400 points. I will list them shortly, but let me add that the average score, the number of points of all theological journals in Poland is, in 2021, the average was 54 points. 2023, 72 points. This is the average, which goes to show how they rose in the rankings. It shows also the higher expectations, because with points come higher expectations, which requires calculating the slots. I won't be getting into detail, but it is showing us that we are on the rise in terms of theological sciences, and we have higher expectations at the same time. The papers until the previous evaluation, according to the granting of points in 2021, worked in reverse. So everything that was published until 2019, until 2021, was re-evaluated. The points were increased, and now whenever there are reports, I appeal to academics and students who publish this report is applicable from the 1st January. So if the list has been revised in halfway through the year, it is applicable from the beginning of the next year. When it was noticed that there was a race for slots in journals, there are some publishing houses that we call the cooperatives, you could say, and the biggest cooperative is MDPI. It's a Chinese journal operating in Switzerland that amasses a lot of journals, and it's been calculated by Ken that in terms of articles in the last evaluation, it was 26,000 of them, and because we know that these articles are most often paid, the Polish government budget spent 240 million zloty. If you divide it by the number of articles, it's 10,000 articles per one article, per one paper. So MDPI papers such as materials released almost 4,000 articles. Let's just think of the scale, the pace at which they publish, and it is 3,500 articles. It just goes to show the very top. In terms of Polish journals, in the last report, they received for the first time 200 points. There are 31 journals that received 200 points. In terms of theology, we have the following, and they are categorized, put into 4 categories to do with church. Canon law studies, that's one. Annals of Catholic theology, theology, biblical annals, here from Kul, as well as person and challenges from family studies. A lot of 200 points journals are medical ones, Acta Neuropsychologica, but 200 points was also granted to technical sciences journals. The name is Cement, Calcium and Concrete. That's the name of the paper that also received 200 points. Journal that received 200 points. As for other questions related to everything that's happened, I don't want to condemn MDPI, because on the list there are also journals that I think publish at a high level, and they haven't been removed from the Web of Science. And ethical action took place where 400 journals were crossed off the list of MDPI. Some of them state But you could see that the quotation, the number of quotes of the Polish scientists is on the rise. The impact of Polish science on the world science is on the rise also in the case of theology. So, to summarize, I believe this meeting will tighten the cooperation of 3Cs countries, scientists, so that we learn more about the structures of our universities and also journals in which our colleagues in different universities publish. And thanks to that, by being members of scientific council, being reviewers, we could further tighten the cooperation and bonds between us. So let's remember that the content of academic papers matters. But as we say, the devil is in the details, or angel is in the details. Please remember about the algorithms, because we're children of this world and we may compete with disciplines which are very particular. Thank you very much.
Bardzo dziękujemy księdzu.
Thank you very much, Father Dean, for familiarizing us with that problem for science, not only for theological discipline.
Now I will switch to English because our guest is Professor Dr. Janez Vodičar from Slovenia, a Salesian priest for 32 years. He first graduated from Faculty of Theology, then from Faculty of Arts, University of Ljubljana. Since 1994, he's been teaching philosophy at high school in Zemlje. In the year 2000, he finished doctoral studies in the Theological Faculty of University of Ljubljana with the title Poetics and Peak or End of Philosophy, with the emphasis on the search of speech about God in Paul Ricoeur. Throughout, he's been actively involved in the activities of working group of professors of philosophy. He also wrote extensive introductions to the first translations of work of Paul Ricoeur in Slovenian. With various lectures, he's reached into present problems of a contemporary man, especially of youth. He has published articles in many scholarly journals in the fields of hermeneutics, didactics, and religious education. He was also Vice Dean at the Theological Faculty. First, he was Vice Dean for Education. Now he is Dean of Faculty of Theology at the University of Ljubljana. And Professor Vodičar will present the subject, the study of theology in the digital age. Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for invitation. We have a little 42 kilometers of coast. I may say, thanks to Croatia, today is nobody here. Even, are you here? No. Okay, we can say that we are still sea power. Not such power, but, you know, with small boat we cannot fight, but okay. And it's unfortunately I cannot speak Polish. I don't understand because we are far away in these Slavic languages, and so this stupid English language we use all. What can we do? And my improvement in English was in Africa. I gave lectures in Tanzania, and so it's a little African accent. I hope it will be understandable. But I am going to topic. I will officially thanks to my colleague Gregor. He was in the group of AVEPRO, not inspection. That was not inspection. Truly, we thought before that it will be a inspection, but was not inspection. What really good meeting with a good suggestion, special for bishops. That's needing. Every faculty of theology needs from outside to say something to bishops. So Gregor was really a good member of this team, and we are going further with suggestion that they gave us, and we have put on our internet site the sign of AVEPRO. You can see on our website. And Gregor also spoke about journals. If you want good reputation in some articles, sent to our faculty. We have two good in Scopus and Web of Science, I think Bogusław Nevesnik and Dinost in Dialogue. And you can, without this, we say predator journals. You say also the same? Predators? Predator journals, and because you have to pay, that's not science. I call this scientific prostitution. Unfortunately, that's it. But we are going now to a more seriously problem, not only for us. We have to survive at faculties. We are on state university. We need points, and we are good to students. They don't know what is meaning every year to be evaluated. Every year you have to get so many points and so on. That's something that I couldn't think about when I was student. But what we have together today, all, not only students here, all students over the world, also in Africa I saw, it's digital age. And what does this mean for changing, not only methodologically, but to change our theological approach? Because it's changing theology, not only changing our way how to preach, how to teach in the school religious matters. It's changing our thinking about God, about the church, about religious community, and so on. I will put just some points, and I'm going from authority. You know, religion is based on authority. The process of secularization has increasingly eroded this authority as the individual has become more and more liberated. The social system of enterprise, which emphasizes human independence and power, has given us enough confidence in ourselves that we are less and less likely to speak or fear this apparent authority. In modernity, there is an inevitable erosion of the communal authority of collective religious belief and greater interdependency about religious practice as individuals become more critical of underlying classificatory principles. The social roots of belief are slowly being eroded by the growth of modern individualism and by applied technologies of communication that bypass entrenched social relations. It is precisely these new forms of digital communication that are most pronouncedly encroaching on the understanding of religious authority and its institutions. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, this is even more pronounced. First, because the religious system in the age of revelation was hierarchical, unified, and authoritative. But the system of communication acts in the new media environment is horizontal rather than vertical, diverse and fragmented. The sources of authority are decentralized, and the authority of each message is subject to negotiation and agreement. The growth of these different centers of interpretation in the global communication system has led to a crisis of authority in the formal world of religious belief and practice. Today, authority no longer comes from the past. Today, authority is what is established before our eyes. The world is increasingly a space of opinions, which in all its fluidity establishes, together with the emergence of online influencers, a certain uniformity despite the appearance of the constantly new. The influence of likes, despite its contingency, increasingly plays the role of authority. It is this phenomenon of visibility that drastically changes the very mode of communication, transforming it from a distinct human activity and commons into a valuable commercial product. Within this model, the key question for the production of public communication is whether a large enough market can be found or attracted to make the publication financially sustainable. Another important value and dynamic is commodification, where social or cultural activities are co-opted, stolen or invented, and then packaged and sold as commercial products. The commercialization of most social and cultural activities is displacing previous social structures that supported non-commercial activities beneficial to the wider community. Even online communication activities such as blogs, which may begin with a need for self-expression, can be found taken up or taken over by commercial interests seeking to gain an audience. Religious communities are also caught up in this commercial mindset. Religious communities have quickly emerged, fully digested, and engaged in a battle for attention. If we look at Christianity, it has been quick to embrace the new digital media. All this brings with it a change in the theological view of the community of the church, as well as in the understanding of revelation. The concept of digital religion has developed, which attempts to define religious developments in modern communication, not only in Christianity, but in general. As digital and social media are increasingly part of our daily routines, many aspects of our lives take place in both physical and digitally mediated environments. Multimedia reality is characteristic of digital religions, where our lives are a series of online, physical, and integrated encounters. This has implications for how religions are seen and practiced in contemporary society. It includes new expressions of religious practice and community that take place online and offline. These communities may be entirely new and without a traditional authority, or they may be those that reinforce a traditional authority precisely through the internet. Digital, with various possibilities and opportunities, has created an environment in which people can personalize this religious belief. They can choose which information and which rituals appeal to them and build their own religious identities. A certain syncretism is one of the first characteristics of pure digital religious communities. However, even in such community, sooner or later, the influencers and their beliefs emerge and sustain the community. More importantly, members of traditional religious communities also avail themselves of these opportunities, which influence their views, expectations, and demands on their own authority systems. Researchers highlight the fact that digital media, like many other forms of mass media, function as symbolic or meaning resources that spiritual seekers in contemporary society use in religious orientation and the creation of religious practice. However, it also suggests that the pursuit of religion online is not a substitute for people's interaction with outside religious group or resources. On the contrary, people construct their religious identity simultaneously in physical and online spaces in a complementary way. Such crowdsourcing of religious experiences and reflections on faith offers enormous opportunities and challenges for effective theology in the third millennium. It opens up a new way of acquiring and disseminating theological teachings. If we limit ourselves to the Catholic Church, we see its strong presence on the web from the very beginning, which is understandable, since the Church has a well-developed teaching ministry, a clear understanding of teaching authority, and even a theological basis for that authority. But it has often been forgotten that the world of digital technologies and social networks involves millions of believers in alternative structures of kind of religious authority. For them, the official teaching ministries of the Church still have some authority, but this is often unclear. In order to facilitate the Church's acceptance and development of a new authority in the service of proclamation, it is necessary to rethink the very way in which this authority is established in the digital environment. Despite the appearance of democracy and freedom of choice on the internet, there is often an invisible form of authority behind it, which can be called algorithmic. Algorithms are the hermeneutical keys to ordering the digital world. The question is who has set and chosen them? Only one thing is clear. Algorithms are not neutral. They face a decision. Authority in digital ecology is not imposed, but is self-generated, which is recognizable by the number of followers. It is an authority generated by the users themselves for the sake of a kind of credibility that the individual usually generates in digital ecologies. In social media, contingency is more than easy to generate since algorithms are not perfect. Contingency is inherent. Moreover, sources are usually calculated to include an additional degree of deliberate randomness. Motivation originally came from basic mathematics, not from human psychology. Social media algorithms are usually adaptive, meaning that they are constantly changing slightly to try to achieve better results. Better, in this case, means more attractive and therefore more profitable. The freedom we all so much want is ever closer thanks to the possibility on offer in the digital market. And liberation from the old authorities in the spirit of democratization makes it possible. On the other hand, we all lament the impotence of educational institutions, also theological. There is also a major problem in the inability of many to believe anyone. In both areas, education and belief, a similar pattern has emerged. The process of secularization, with its desire to liberate men, has made authority self-evident. Digitalization has provided concrete opportunities for this. In the field of education, it is increasingly emphasized that the teacher should act as a prophet and that the school should become something sacred. To strengthen the teacher, professor for this prophetic role, he needs a methodological approach that can enable him to do so. We propose a path of critical consciousness as developed by Paulo Freire. This may be precisely the way to preventive education so that the digital environment becomes a good tool and not an escape from the world. The teacher will thus gain genuine and sufficiently strong attention. Likewise, a pastoral worker who knows how to address the neighbors in their lives, as the mother knows and as Pope Francis suggests, will awaken a critical attitude towards the emerging prophets and inspire the confidence needed in proclamation. So I come to conclusion. In the spirit of critical consciousness in the digital age, the Church must re-emphasize in the study of theology four things that have long been disconnected, put together. First, authority with the ecclesiastical nature of faith. The first witness of faith was the community on the day of Pentecost, not just the individual. Second, to integrate the Eucharist, which shapes the exercise of the Church's authority into the very communication of faith. Already at the Last Supper and then onwards, there was one in the breaking of bread. Third, to integrate the online influencer back into the economy of faith. The Church has always lived on the strength of new charismas. Fourth, to ground the concrete community of the parish as the site of the influencer experience of authority with other embodied persons in real space and time. The open space of the digital in the faith community only makes sense when there is enough critical communion consciousness to infuse faith, foster belonging, accountability, and support individual freedom through active engagement in the life of the community. Thank you.
And more digital in our life, so this is obvious. But thank you very much for your valuable contribution. I would like to invite cordially now Father Professor Adrian Podaru, Father Adrian Podaru comes from Cluj-Napoca in Romania. He teaches patristics at the Faculty of Orthodox Theology, Babes-Bolyai University. He has graduated theology in 2000, then philosophy, classical languages, Latin and ancient Greek in 2003. He has a PhD in theology and defended a thesis entitled Ecclesiastical Authority and Imperial Power in Late Antiquity, St. John Chrysostom and St. Augustine. He has also translated into Romanian the homilies on the statutes of St. John Chrysostom and made other translations, a funeral speech in honor of St. John Chrysostom, written in the 4th century, and some philosophical texts on soul written by a Byzantine philosopher and theologian named Michael Psellos. Father Adrian Podaru is in charge of a Center for Patristic Studies and Ancient Christian Literature at Babes-Bolyai University, a center which has been founded by members of all 4 faculties of theology from this university: the Roman Catholic faculty, the Greek Catholic faculty, the Protestant faculty, and the Orthodox faculty. This center organizes, among other activities, summer schools and symposias. Next year in October they will have an international symposium called Before and After Nicaea I. Since 2020 he is Vice Dean of the Faculty of Orthodox Theology. Have you noticed, I hope, that there is a probably unique university where there are 4 faculties of theology. Dear Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I would like to express my gratitude first for this invitation, and it was really a very beautiful and fruitful week in Kul. Thank you for the invitation. We hope to see you again soon. I will write my paper because I want to be in the 15 minutes which were allowed to every speaker. And I won't stop for any further clarifications. If there are some clarifications to be done, we will do it later. So the title is Answering the Challenges of Contemporaneity by Using the Fathers of the Church. First point, what I understand when I use here the term contemporaneity. In this context, I use the term contemporaneity to signify mainly postmodernity and what is defined by this term. Postmodernity arose, at least partially, as a reaction to modernity. Modernity came, among other things, with the myth of progress, the scientific reform, the lights of reason, the philosophical clarifications of all kinds, the political reform. All this will produce the rightly ordered society, but the World War I, World War II, the Holocaust, the atomic bombs, etc., blew this myth of progress. So the critical movement of post-modernity emerged. There are some major features of post-modernity. I will name only 4. First, the social construction of the concept of the self. That is, identity is constructed by so many cultural forces, it's not something given to you. Obviously, this is opposing the biblical and patristic idea of man being created in the image of God. Second feature, relativism of moral and ethical discourses. Morality is not found, is not grounded, is not given, but is made. It expresses many times the will of power and dominion of a group over the others by using moral commandments as derived from religious beliefs. So if morals, ethics are not given from above, from a transcendent being, from God, why bother at all? I will become the author of my own morals. 3. Deconstruction in art and culture. Knowledge, truth, meaning are mostly culturally constructed and therefore relative products of individual cultures. but none of them possesses some objective, universal sense of meaning. Therefore, globalization, people see borders of all kinds, geographic, moral, cultural, religious, as social constructions that can be or should be reconstructed. The postmodern frame is multi-layered, liberal, plural, and tolerant, and allows many, even mutually contradictory voices in its ranks. But it equally has a strong relativizing character that never accepts notions of religious exclusivity, absoluteness, or superiority, and keeps certain modern agendas intact. For example, the peaceful coexistence of religious groups and other actors in society, or the religious neutrality of the state. The second point, who are the fathers of the church? What do I mean by using this expression? By the expression, the fathers of the church, I understand those pastors, priests, bishops, clerical persons, and teachers of the church whose thinking and teaching became normative in the church, authoritative in the church, because the church as an organic body recognized their authority in matters of faith and in expressing this faith. They are recognized as being true interpreters of the revelation, that is, of the Bible, and their interpretation, so the interpretation of the fathers, has been acknowledged as normative in the Orthodox Church and in accordance to the truth contained in the revelation. Why? Because it is believed that they interpreted the scriptures with the help and under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. It is commonly agreed in the West that the patristic period ended in the West with Saint Gregory the Great, 604, and in the East with Saint John of Damascus, 749. Among the Eastern Fathers, I would mention, for those who are not familiar, Saint Athanasius the Great, Saint Basil the Great, Saint Gregory of Nazianzus, Saint Gregory of Nyssa, Saint John Chrysostom, Saint Maximus the Confessor, etc. In the West, Saint Cyprian of Carthage, Saint Irenaeus of Lyon, Saint Augustine, of course. According to the Eastern understanding of the concept of fathers of the Church, the patristic period never ended. In fact, this patristic period will last until the Last Judgment. How can that be explained? I will use an encomium, a panegyric, to give a proper explanation. It is an encomium written in 301 by Saint Gregory of Nyssa in honor of his deceased brother, Saint Basil the Great. Comparing his brother to Saint Paul the Apostle, Gregory says that these two are equal in honor. So Saint Paul is not greater than Saint Basil, because they both have accomplished the task they have received from God. Saint Paul destroyed idolatry by bringing the pagans to the adoration of the true God, while Basil healed the Christians, that is the body of Christ, of heresy, that is Arianism in his time mainly. In accordance to Gregory of Nyssa's view, both St. Paul and St. Basil were a kind of doctors healing the body of the church of its illness, idolatry in the first case, heresy in the other. So whenever there is a crisis in the church or an illness, God sends the right healer or doctor to heal the wounded body. And since the church will be until the end of history attacked by illnesses, microbes of all sorts, the need for healers, doctors, that is, fathers of the church, will be a permanent one. Third point, how can we apply successfully the patristic discourse to the challenges brought by contemporaneity, modernity, postmodernity? If the characteristics of contemporaneity are contingency, that is, something can be or can't be, it is neither necessary nor impossible, Dogmatic and moral relativism, deconstruction of culture, globalization, construction of the concept of the self, etc. How can we use the fathers of the church to answer to these new challenges? For the Christians of the 4th century, for example, there was no such thing as relativism in dogmas and morals, contingency, the denial of the existence of God. These are rather postmodern features, modern and postmodern features of our human society at a large scale. So in what way are the fathers of the church normative and able to give answers in these days and under these conditions? Well, those who are able to provide answers are not so much the fathers of late antiquity. I will not go back to St. John Chrysostom, for example, although they provide guidelines which are perennial, but the new fathers of the church who lived in the same conditions as we live may provide a proper answer. And the fourth, the contemporary fathers of the church, by living in the same context as modern and postmodern contesters of religion, faith, objective truth, and by observing the anthropological shift contemporaneity has brought about, may deliver a proper answer. We are facing now an anthropological crisis, a shift of epoch in what concerns anthropology, as it was already told in the previous sessions, and the proper answer and spiritual means to heal this crisis must be searched for, in my opinion, at least, in the writings of the new fathers, Saint Siluan the Atonite, who died in 1938, Saint Nicholas Velimirovich, who died in 1956, Saint Justin Popovich, who died in 1979, Saint Sophrony Sakharov, who died in 1993, Saint Paisius the Atonite, who died in 1994, and the list could continue. I will give you only one example of what I have in mind. Saint Sophrony Sakharov, my colleague has spoken about him yesterday, says that very few people in every generation have really lived according to the ideal of the Gospels and according to the will of Christ. It is exactly these contemporary generations of true Christians to reveal this truth. We are now a minority, but the true Christians were always a minority. As long as the political authorities and the states, in one word, or the political authorities were Christians as well, even if only by name, labeled as Christians, and cooperated with the church, this fact that we are now a minority was not well visible. So when all the society proclaimed it's Christian. But now when the state is separated from the church and more secularized, the status of the church and of the true Christians as a minority is very well visible. And that was stressed yesterday and the day before. Therefore, we have to assume this status of being a minority and to be courageous in living a Christian life at all costs. It is mandatory to have the courage of saying the truth, which in the Christian view is neither subjective nor diverse, and not to adjust this truth and this way of living to the new terms of contemporaneity. If that means a new way of bringing testimony, of being martyrs, martyres into this world, so be it. Yesterday it was discussed on the meaning of the human being as image of God. My colleague, Reverend Paul Siladi, said that in every generation and in every context, it was a certain feature of this image of God that was stressed upon, that was put forward. It was Saint Gregory of Nyssa, again, who said that being an image of God means to find all the attributes of God as potentialities in man. And man has to transfer these potentialities into realities. If there is only one attribute of God, says Gregory of Nyssa, which is not found in man as potentiality, then man is no longer the image of God, is something else. In my opinion, the divine attribute that we should assume now at the most, and I'm thinking in the first place to my church, is humilitas, humility, smerenia. Christ on the cross, even if the spectators thought he was powerless and useless, was armed and ready for the final battle against sin and against death, as St. John Chrysostom said in a homily. So we, as Christians, could be thought of as being powerless, useless. But in a state of humilitas and with the help of Christ, we can be powerful. We should strive to live the ideal of Christ in a humble, modest way, avoiding all triumphalist attitudes, and we find these triumphalist attitudes in my church, avoiding all triumphalist attitudes toward the society and letting our deeds to talk instead of our discourses. This was only a short meditation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I admire the discipline of the speakers, so we are in very good time. The timing is on our side. Next speaker will be Reverend Professor Wilhelm Dancia from the Roman Catholic Theological Institute in Iași. Priest from 1996, doctorate in philosophy, qualification summa cum laude at the Pontifical Gregorian University. From 1996, on different positions, lecturer, associate professor, professor at the Catholic Institute in Iași and Bucharest. From 2001 to 2011, rector of the Catholic Institute of Iași. From 2011, president of the Romanian branch of the International Society Thomas Aquinas. Professor habilitated in philosophy in 2005. In 2008, European Regional Head of the Council for Research in Values and Philosophy, Catholic University of America, Washington, D.C. From 2011-2020, member of National Governmental Commission for Awarding University Degrees and Diplomas. From 2012, Professor and Dean at the Faculty of Catholic Theology of the University of Bucharest. 2012-2018, Rector of the Catholic Institute of Bucharest, and from 2013, member of the Romanian Academy. From 2016, Professor habilitated in Theology, and from 2017, member of the Salzburg Academy of Science and Arts, awarded several honorary titles, author of 15 books, editor of 8 volumes, and author of over 250 articles and studies in Romanian and in English, Italian, French, and German. Professor Wilhelm Dancia will speak on the subject for a theology of peace today. Professor, we invite you, the floor is yours.
Venerable Dean, thank you very much for the invitation. Dear students, dear colleagues, good morning to you all. I invite you to pay attention to peace, taking into account the context in which we live nowadays. And I invite the professors here to open the way in our programs in faculties to a discipline entitled Theology of Peace. We need that, I suppose. Se vis pacem para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war, said the Romans. In the following pages, I will attempt to change this proverb's philosophy by claiming that si vis pacem para pacem. If you want peace, prepare the peace. This, however, is no easy task, for sadly people fail to learn enough from the tragedy of previous wars and go on wasting enormous sums of money on arming, as it is also happens today. The Bible says it is customary that, I quote, in the spring the kings go off to war, end of quotes. 1 Chronicles chapter 20 verse 1. The war in Ukraine began in spring. Impressive, isn't it? Conflicts between people have their roots in the human nature, and wars are no exception. Consequently, it would be a utopia to think that wars can be eliminated. Nevertheless, the causes and circumstances that lead towards war can be reduced. My paper has two parts. Firstly, I present the reason for which peace is an actual theme. Secondly, I will explain why it is unactual. In the second part, I briefly discuss 7 steps that can lead our contemporaries towards the temple of peace. By this, I mean several features, characteristics for the man of peace, which, if included within the formation of our future generations, could lead towards a lasting peace. The first point, peace as actual theme. Between 8th December 1967, when Pope Paul VI decided that every year the 1st January will be celebrated as the World's Peace Day, at the end of December 1989, the Europeans participated in one way or another in the Cold War. The sufferings endured, the restrictions imposed on religious freedom, and the political tensions were quite overwhelming. Despite this social European climate, which was not only cold but almost frozen, Paul VI and John Paul II continuously sent messages of peace year after year. Among others, Paul VI stated that, I quote, promoting human rights is the road towards peace, or that every human being is my brother. John Paul II advocated that truth is the force of peace, or that freedom is a barometer of peace. These anthropological thoughts and ideas are part of what we call the metaphysics of peace. They had a positive effect and somehow had their own contribution in ending the Cold War. Meanwhile, other international conflicts appeared, some greater, some smaller. According to the conclusions of the Center for Researching World Conflicts in Uppsala, at the end of 2022, there were 180 active conflicts. The term conflict designates not only the context in which two nations or states are confronting each other, but also military conflicts of different degrees of intensity in which the governments of certain countries, criminal organizations, armed groups, and civil population are implicated. There are 3 types of conflicts. Firstly, the so-called state-based armed conflicts. Conflicts in which 2 states or 1 state and a certain militarized organization, such as the ex-organization Wagner, are implicated. Secondly, the non-state conflicts, conflicts between local armed groups and organizations. Lastly, one-sided conflicts, conflicts generated by a state or an armed organization confronting the civil population. In 2022, the Uppsala Conflict Data Program registered 80 conflicts from the first category, 60 from the second category, and 40 from the third. In Europe, there are 2 conflicts from the first category, namely a military confrontation between Azerbaijan and the separatist republic Nagorno-Karabakh on the one hand, and on the other hand between Ukraine and Russia, or better, between Russia and Ukraine. Hatred breeds hatred. War breeds war. We cannot eliminate wars, but we can lessen their causes. Speaking about war as destruction of the international peace, Pope Francis states in his catechesis that any military conflict between different countries is a defeat of mankind's humanity, as men kill their brethren without ever having seen them. War is a place of death. where mothers and fathers bury their children, where the powerful trample on the poor. War is irrational, is an unjustifiable folly that destroys as a society present and future. On the contrary, peace is a meaningful life, which gives a human being the sentiment of fulfillment. Peace is hope. Peace is like a fragile flower striving to bloom among the stones of violence, according to Charles Péguy. The Christian teaching advocates that peace means to respect the dignity of any human being, regardless of his or her history life. Peace as an actual theme. Before anything else, it seems that peace is not actual. Why? For here we share a severe degradation of the relation between word and reality. Rem tene verba sequentur, wrote Cato the Elder, which means master the thing, fact, and the words will come by themselves. In evangelical terms, we could make use of St. Matthew's words, chapter 10, verse 19. Do not be anxious how you are to speak or what you are to say, for what you are to say will be given to you in that hour. The absence or fragility of the relation between things and words, insufficiently bearing in mind the reality in relation with which the word is sign or symbol, is one of the fundamental features of the world in which we live. The word follows the red road of its own autonomy and risks to lose its destiny, as it has become a mere instrumental utterance, especially in the world of social communication networks. The word reduced to the role of mere slogan, propaganda, or instrument of communications annihilates the word which ensures the connection with the truth of things. Before the World War II, Simone Weil was drawing the attention that we risk starting a new Trojan War if we write with capitals meaningless words. Led by the desire to discover something that would correspond to them, people will ceaselessly repeat them, eventually staining them with blood, suffering, death, and tears. Words with no correspondence turn into murderers. Meaningful words build bridges, give life. The deontological lighthouse of him who communicates nowadays should be to clarify concepts, to rebuild the lost connection between reality and words, to discredit empty words. In this context, the messengers of peace are lynched in the media, while the road of peace is proposed by the prophet Isaiah is reduced to the lane in front of one house. Moreover, peace is not actual theme because of our reducing or ignoring the eschatological dimension of history. If someone would like to observe the peace at this level, he needs to have faith. Following this way, we can understand the peace described by the prophet Isaiah as a feature of the last days of history, or as the very meaning of history. The prophet says that many nations will come on the mountain of God, where they will learn to follow his ways, and therefore, I quote, they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore, end of quotes. Certain contemporary historians, experts in military strategies, consider that this is a mere utopia. Nevertheless, we cannot see peace unless we are able to distance ourselves from events and try to overcome them by breaking out of this addiction to the fact itself or to the pure event. Isaiah wrote, has to be constantly followed with imagination, creativity, and without falling before the dark ray, Giorgio Agamben said that, which the conflicts that surround us emit. Finally, another element that makes the architecture of peace difficult is the warrior-like character of today's culture. If we want to arrive at the conclusion that the licit alternative of war is general disarmament, we have to begin first with the cultural disarmament. Although in small doses, the culture of war is also present in the education of young generations. For instance, the competitive spirit, the individualist promotion, the personal success at any cost can be found in our schools at any level. If we want to reach general disarmament, let us begin with disarming the culture of war in our schools and public life. Now, we imagine peace as a kind of a temple. If you like to enter, you need several steps. Here they are. The first step is one's reconciled heart. Martin Buber says that if one has found peace within oneself, one can begin to search for it in the entire world. However, he draws attention that the culture of peace begins with yourself, yet it does not end with yourself. Take yourself as your starting point, but not as your end. Know yourself, but be not preoccupied with yourself. Peace with oneself means to accept our own limits, a spirit of humbleness and common sense in relation with us. It begins with one's inner peace, after which it is somehow exported outside oneself. In spiritual terms, peace begins with changing the directions of one's inner life, namely with passing from indifference to attention and care for one's neighbor. The second step is the interior non-violence. Mahatma Gandhi distinguishes between several types of non-violence. He speaks about the non-violence of the weak, poor, defenseless, and about the non-violence of the powerful. At the level of inner life, the non-violence of the powerful means the strength to pray for the assassin who is taking your life. Moreover, the non-violence of the powerful means the awareness of God's presence in one's heart. Gandhi adds that only death can reveal whether non-violence is or not a feature of our inner life. In his case, he himself happened to be assassinated on 13th January 1948, and he was praying then for his assassin. However, if we can say that deep within their hearts there lies the non-violence of the powerful, at least we can outwardly express our sympathy towards non-violence, becoming thus the friends of non-violence. Even if in certain cases we can recourse to violence in order to defend ourselves or to defend those who are helpless, we are still called to carefully weigh each particular situation. Does non-violence play any role in today's society? In the 20th century, there have been around 325 political, social, cultural revolutions, from which about 100 were non-violent and succeeded in proportion of 53%, while the violent ones succeeded only 26%. Among the non-violent changes of the last century, we can also mention the fall of the communist regimes in Eastern Europe in 1989. Pope John Paul II refers to it as a peaceful, non-violent fight, only conducted with the weapons of truth and justice. A rightful peace attained by means of the inner non-violence of the powerful has a pluralistic character, as it does not destroy, does not level, does not absorb, but favor the harmony of legitimate differences. The third step is the objection of one's conscience, or the conscientious objection. Conscientious objectors who oppose war publicly manifest themselves in personal or collective forms, which, the occasion of certain peaceful manifestations, organized at social, political, religious, or cultural level. The conscious objection can also be found with those who refuse to enroll for the compulsory military service in accordance with the law, stating that they find themselves in the moral impossibility to accept the usage of violence, especially that of military violence. Justification is not always based on conscience, as some claim to have religious, philosophical, or political reasons. It is worth mentioning that during the second half of the 20th century, several European states introduced in their own legislation the right to refuse military enrollment and the possessions of arms. The fourth step is the dialogue between generations. There can be seen at worldwide level various forms of ruptures between the young generations and the society of mature people. A new cultural paradigm seems necessary, one that should include the culture of peace, starting from renewing the bond between age generations. The young people ought to be offered new lifestyles and a culture inspired by solidarity and the respect for one's neighbor. More mature persons are invited to give a good example to those who are younger as regarding mutual respect and the various modalities to discover the truth in other human beings. Such lessons of peaceable cohabitation in ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity are more than necessary. A stable, long-lasting peace can be built on the dialogue between the guardian of memory, namely the elderly people, and the young generation who can actualize the meaning of history. When this dialogue is happening, we can see how each of them is disposed to leave place to the other, how they are willing to learn from each other. The young people have to be aware that without roots, no trees can grow. The fifth step is represented by education. In this respect, we remark that there is an educational crisis at a global level. We notice an emphasis on exact and economic sciences and a lessened interest in humanist and spiritual sciences. Therefore, from the three main principles of integral education, abilities, qualifications, and character, the last one, namely the character, is superficially treated, ignored, or even eliminated. This crisis can also be seen from the fact that the budget for the formation of the young generations has been worldwide diminished, while military expenses have been increased. According to a report, just a few words, yes. Reducing the budget for education can be justified by the fact that it implies expenses and not an investment. The sixth step is constituted by the belief that the victory of the law is the guarantee for respecting human dignity. The seventh step is the memory of events, not only of the joyful ones, but also of the less fortunate ones. Do not forget, if you want peace, prepare the peace. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor. It is very important now, especially when we experience wars all over the world, and especially by our border. The next speaker will be Deacon Professor Benas Ulevicius. He is a Dean of Faculty of Catholic Theology in Vytautas Magnus University in Kaunas in Lithuania. Professor Ulevicius is a husband and father of a 9-year-old daughter, Teresa. His academic interests include liturgical anthropology, systematic theology, and apologetics. He is well known in Lithuania as a speaker and radio host on various Catholic topics. Until recently, he was a leader of the Christian movement Army 777, which includes representatives of youth subcultures such as metal, fans, goths, bikers, and the like. Professor Ulevicius will present the subject theology as a response to the hunger for truth and meaning in Lithuanian society. Professor, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, it's very nice to be here. And my colleagues, deans, and Dean, thank you very much, Father, for inviting me here. I'm also very glad to see Professor Father Marek Chmielewski, who is Doctor Honoris Causa of Vytautas Magnus University. So it's good to see you, Professor. Brothers and sisters in Christ, colleagues, I thought maybe it's a good time for a short story, which could be illustrative story for what we do at our faculties or Catholic universities. Maybe it will relate more to small faculties of theology at state universities, which is very peculiar position and situation, or maybe to some communities and parishes that experience some decline in attendance, which happens recently more and more in what we do. We have these experiences at our institutions, and our faculty is the only faculty of Catholic theology established by Vatican in the country. Maybe 15 years ago, there were several institutions in the country that would prepare teachers for religion, let's say, or catechists, or teach Catholic theology. But all of these institutions are gone because there were no candidates, and the only faculty that survived is us, except there is another program in western part of university, master degree program, and it's not strictly theological program. And about 10 years ago, numbers of students really decreased also in our faculty because of legislation, changes in law in Lithuania, and of course, demographical situation. So we learned to live we kind of adjusted our strategies to the situation, and for the last 10 years we were kind of okay. We learned to play by these rules. We find strategies of survival, I would say, and now we have about 100 students per all three levels at our faculty, about a little bit more than 30 professors teaching different topics, and only 3 or 4 of these people work full-time. All others teach 1 or 2 topics, and they go back to their communities, their parishes. And there is no vice dean at the faculty because faculty is small. It's the smallest faculty at university, and thanks to God, our rector really loves us, and university supports us. But this might change very quickly with the new rector, and we all the time live like that. So I want to say a very little story about subtle, nice change that we experienced a few years ago, 2 years ago. In this situation, one lady came. Her name is Giedrė. That's non-formal story, of course. Giedrė used to work as a helper, assistant of chaplain of the university, and really did her job well. She's alumna of our faculty. She studied theology once. Then she left to UK and worked in secular job, but during that time she never forgot the faculty. She is in love with faculty. She loves theology, she loves philosophy. And she would tell me, I will come back to faculty one day. And of course, as a dean and a colleague, I would say, of course, any day, soon. But then she comes and says, I think that day is now. That happened 3 years ago. And do you have any money for what I bring to faculty? And I say, no, of course, we have no money for anything else except for what we are already doing. And Giedrė says, how about that plan? You know, I'm working well, I have good ideas, and that's true, that's right. She has strategical thinking, she's creative. Not that crazy type creative, but really disciplined, creative type of person. And how about that? I can work with a couple of projects that I myself work and prepare, and this is good for starters. And after 2 years of what I'm doing, you decide as a faculty, do you want me to continue or just let me go? And it will be fair. And why not? Okay, let's try to do that. And we made a little committee of brainstorming. And Giedre would make us come together, maybe 4 people, and brainstorm. And that's where it started. Usually we would come together and brainstorm and stop and go and do whatever we are doing, administrative work, teaching, and many of these good, wonderful ideas wouldn't come to fulfillment. They would stay on theoretical level. But Giedre would say, okay, so I will be the person of implementation of what we are talking here. Also, I noticed that during those 10 years, we learned how to survive, and this is the problem of some institutions. If you have good survival strategy, you are okay with your science production, you are okay with studies, it will work unless the whole landscape changes. But then landscape changes, your strategies collapse, and you have nothing. And we were so much adjusted to what we already do, safeguarding what we already found as a good working strategy. We wouldn't want to move these things. We wouldn't want to change anything. And we were not in power. We didn't have energy or time to bring anything new. And Giedre will say, we could change this to better. We could bring something new here. And our instant reaction would be no. We tried this is not possible, we have no time. This is too dangerous, this will not work. And after we proved the point that every time we kept saying that, she says, so now let's decide, should we do that or we stop here? You see, this doesn't work. And we say, okay, how about we don't teach her how to work? Let her do her thing and let's support her. And I think that brought some very positive change in some areas of our development. First of all, we noticed that 10 of our professors who are going and doing outreach, do the outreach of the same type to the same type of people, which is amazing, which is good. But there are other people that we don't reach. And Giedre would say we should reach those people, and we say, no, we don't have people to do that anymore. We all are busy. And she says, how about what are Catholic intellectuals that are not connected to faculty per se? We admire them, we like them, but they are somewhere there doing something else. How about we talk with them and make them partner of the faculty? You don't pay the money, it's a partner of the faculty. And make non-formal courses adjusted to the needs of society. How do we know the needs of society? Our group of people will say, we know the needs of society. And Giedre says, no, you don't. How do you know we don't? Where is the research? Did you do research? Do you really put yourself into finding about those needs? She did the research. She would go from priest to priest, parish, how parishes are doing. She would go from priest to priest and talk with priests and find about the needs of parish. She would go to secular people, find the needs about secular people, publish these researches, and okay, let's offer something. So there is another new group of people in the last 2 years that do not work at the faculty, but they are partners of faculty. We do sometimes supper or lunch together. We acknowledge them somehow, and then I found that the lists of people that attend these non-formal lectures, there are none people that we know. Usually the same people would come to faculty for our services, and new people never heard of this, of that person. Dozens of people were starting attending lectures connected to the faculty. And some of these people came to me later, and I want to study theology. Why do you want that? well, I have doctor degree in literature, and I have this, I really liked those lectures, I have conversion experience, or I have 2 degrees, master degrees in this or that area, and I really think I need to know about the church more. My kids are grown, I have free time, and we also would have competition for high school students, kids, 18, 17 years old. Every year, faculty would do this academic essay competition. Giedrė would say, let's bring something new to this. How about we find someone, some good Catholics, Lithuanian Catholics studying or graduates of Oxford University, Cambridge University, the names that sound very well publicly, and do these competitions together with Cambridge University, Oxford University. And we would say, well, that would take the whole half year of our efforts, you know. No, I will do that, she would say. That requires one person doing it and I will do nothing else but just these projects of faculty. And we did those 2 competitions. And the prize was visit Oxford University, visit Cambridge University for a whole week. That's interesting for young kids. And some of these kids came and entered our faculty. What I have in mind, it took some courage, and sometimes we would come to disagreement, but 99% of the time, she was right. She appeared to be right. And that's a shame. I am ashamed to tell that. We were doing so many wonderful things, but somehow we were kind of in a big bubble and we couldn't reach other people, and she did something new. And now she does also organize us together with faculty every year one big conference for leaders of Catholic groups. She would say this conference should be paid. And we say, no, no one will come. Everything should be free. We are a Catholic country, after all. And Giedrė says, but then they will not cherish. They will register. They will not come. How much should they pay? I say, like, okay, 75 euros per conference. Is this okay? 1-day conference? Are you crazy? That's impossible. How about 10 euros or 5? The first conference, she invited expert from Poland, Maria Olszewska. She is expert in economics, church economics. And Giedrė did research. She says, no one gave conference on how to make money in parish, let's say. And she did that conference. 12 speakers, and Maria Olszewska did the workshops and was a leading speaker. We had a full hall of leaders of Catholic communities and institutions. Everyone paid that 75 euros, and everyone was really surprised and happy. That was one of the best conferences of my life, they would say. So, coming to an end, I just wanted to enlighten your mood with a little encouraging story. It's good sometimes to give a chance for a person that you know, loves the church and does a quality job, but it seems that there is no such a position at our faculty. Kind of make that position. Giedrė is a coordinator of projects of Faculty of Theology. Then after 1 year, we went to Grand Chancellor, to Archbishop, and we say, look what happened, look what happened. And he says, okay, part of my support for faculty, I can provide some funding for this position, that she would continue whatever she's doing. And the last 2 years, we had increase in admittance to studies. First time in 15 years, we had 14 people entering Catholic theology program. That never happened. We usually would have 7, 8, now 14. Last year, there was increase to 12 people. Hopefully, this continues, and hopefully this was a little inspiration for whatever you are doing. So thank you very much for a very warm invitation again, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Many of us can be jealous that there is some great hunger for theology in Lithuania. At this university, we started to do something unique, perhaps, in the world, a new type of theology directed to the dialogue with the Jews. And about this, I will ask to speak Father Professor Marcin Kowalski from our university, who is a member of the Pontifical Biblical Commission, director of the Abraham Joshua Heschel Center for Catholic Jewish Relations, and assisting professor at the John Paul II Catholic University of Lublin, a lecturer in the Institute of Biblical Studies, visiting professor at the Pontifical Urbaniana University, the New Testament editor of the Biblical Quarterly, the Biblical Annals. His scientific interests comprise the letters of St. Paul, ancient rhetorics, socio-rhetorical approach, sociology and anthropology of culture, the Bible in culture. He is the author of Transforming Boasting of Self into Boasting into Lord, the book about Corinthians II, a commentary, Tomorrow is a Sunday, a series of books, and also author of many articles in distinguished periodicals. Professor Kowalski will speak about Heschel Center at the Catholic University of Lublin, new perspectives of development of Jewish-Christian dialogue. The floor is yours, 15 minutes for you.
15 or less, I realize we're all tired, or a bit at least, with a lot of interesting, though, very interesting papers we had. From the last one, we can draw also a conclusion that it would be better to pay for this conference. We would enjoy it even more, right? Like 75 or more. But I want to congratulate.
You can still make a collection.
Yeah, right. It's a very Catholic thing, actually, to make a collection at the end. So anyway, I want to congratulate to our dean and to all the faculty for organizing this wonderful congress. It's a huge enterprise, actually, and we all enjoyed it for a couple of days. It's coming to conclusion. I'm honored also to speak as the last one, sort of summing up all our papers and discussions here. What I want to do is I want to share with you our experience with the Heschel Center at the Catholic University of Lublin, and our experience, a fresh one actually, lasting a year, with the Jewish-Christian dialogue. I want to make also a very concrete proposal here for all the deans, for all our professors to join us in this enterprise of promoting the Jewish-Christian dialogue, which is very fortuitous, which is very also timely, because as you see and know, we have war also in the Holy Lands, and the only solution is actually a dialogue. So the Abraham Joshua Heschel Center for Catholic Jewish Relations at the Catholic University of Lublin, new perspectives on the development of Christian-Jewish dialogue. Let's start with a bit of history. The Vatican II started a new stage in the history of Christian-Jewish dialogue. The famous declaration Nostra Aetate of 1965, number 4, emphasizes the great spiritual heritage shared by Christians and Jews. The common roots of our faith, which lie in the history of the patriarchs, Moses and the prophets, the heritage of the Old Testament and the Jewish origins of Jesus, Mary, and the apostles. These represent an imperative to revive mutual knowledge and respect through biblical and theological studies and through fraternal conversation. The Conciliar Declaration, referring to St. Paul, contains many pregnant statements about Israel as God's beloved people. It's Romans 11, opposing any persecution of the Jews and treating them as people rejected by God. The seeds of dialogue sown by the Vatican II were taken up by numerous statements and documents issued by popes and by the Vatican Commission for Religious Relations with the Jews, established in 1974. They address topics under discussion in modern exegesis and theology as the relevance of the First Covenant, the value of contemporary Judaism, and the nature of the mission and dialogue to be carried out by us in the Church. One of the most moving documents published by the Commission is the text entitled "We Remember," a reflection on the Shoah from 1998, in which the authors reflect on the genesis and tragedy of the Holocaust, seeing it a moral imperative to develop Jewish-Christian dialogue. The document expresses the spirit and prophetic charisma of John Paul II, who did a lot to promote dialogue with Judaism, being the first of the popes to visit the Roman synagogue in 1986, where he uttered his memorable words about the Jews being our beloved brothers and sisters, our, so to say, elder brothers in the faith. The Abraham Joshua Heschel Center for Catholic Jewish Relations, established by our rector, Reverend Professor Miroslav Kalinowski, in October 17 last year at the Catholic University of Lublin, follows in the footsteps of the great Polish Pope who promoted Christian-Jewish dialogue, but not only. We have chosen as our patron another great thinker, the Jewish philosopher and theologian Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. Born in Warsaw in 1907, Heschel came from a famous Hasidic family hailing from Opatów rabbis. He studied in Germany, from where, in result of the Nazi Polen-Aktion, he was deported to Poland in 1938. He taught for 2 years in Warsaw at the Institute of Jewish Studies, which he left just before the German invasion of Poland in 1939, heading for Great Britain and then for America. For a period of time, he taught at the Reform Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati, and then for the rest of his life at the Conservative Jewish Theological Seminary of America in New York. Until the end of his life, he held the position of lecturer of Jewish ethics and mysticism. Heschel combined scholarly work with active participation in social life. He was, so to say, social activist in our terms. For instance, see this famous march with Martin Luther King. He accompanied Martin Luther King in his famous march from Selma to Montgomery in 1965. He himself acknowledged that, well, he said that he was praying with his feet when marching for the rights of African Americans there. And we owe to him remarkable publications that take up the universal topics of human dignity and relationship with God's transcendence, as man is not alone, God in search of men, the prophets, the Shabbat, the heavenly Torah, or the passion for truth. He was also an ardent advocate of Jewish-Christian dialogue, a representative of American Jews, participated in the Vatican II, and he worked on Nostra Aetate. We owe to him, number 4, the most important point of Nostra Aetate that I just quoted. So with such patrons, the Heschel Center at the Catholic University of Lublin aims to promote international Christian dialogue in the triple area of scientific research, education, and culture. In the field of theology, we drive on the Bible, source of common values and traditions shared by Christians and Jews. Subjects of interdisciplinary research promoted by the center also include philosophy, history, literature, cultural studies, illustrating mutual relations between Christians and Jews, commemorating the past and exploring our common cultural roots serves to build a future full of peace, openness, and mutual respect. The educational and popularizing activities carried by the Heschel Center are dedicated to promote interreligious and intercultural dialogue based on understanding and respect for one's own identity with respect for the other. Education and popularization serve the formation of responsible civic attitudes, especially among young people, but also in other social strata, resulting in building bridges between local and international communities. Finally, the cultural activities planned at the Heschel Center are to familiarize our societies with the heritage of Jewish Christian culture. The Heschel Center at the Catholic University of Lublin, despite the short time of its existence, has already managed to establish some very interesting contacts with important institutions like Boston College, Georgetown University, Yad Vashem, Bar Ilan in Ramat Gan, Bethlehem University, Ben Gurion University in the Negev, Seminario Rabbinico Latinoamericano, Cardinal Bia Center, and Gregorian University, and many, many others. We also published two-volume item by Richard Tindorf, Wartime Rescue of Jews by the Polish Catholic Clergy, and a book by one of our members of the center, Reverend Paweł Rytl-Andrianik, on the Polish Ulma family who gave their lives for hiding their Jewish neighbors during the war. Their beatification took place on September the 10th, 2023. In May 2023, we also organized the first exchange of student groups from Loyola Marymount University in the USA, with whom we participated together with lectures, meetings, synagogue prayers, and in Eucharist. A series of multimedia commentaries prepared jointly by Christian and Jewish authors has been also produced by us, with the American Catholic Biblical Association and the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops now involved. We are in the process of creating a multimedia encyclopedia of the righteous, which we will publish on the internet. Through biographies, photos, and films, we want to document the heroic attitudes of those Poles, but also members of other nations who helped their Jewish brothers and sisters during World War II, oftentimes giving up their lives for them. Recently, we also prepared the ceremony of awarding an honorary doctorate at our university to Rabbi Abraham Skorka, a great advocate of Jewish-Christian dialogue. And in December, we are hosting a group of students of Boston College coming to Poland with Professor Shoshana Heschel, a daughter of Abraham Joshua Heschel. At this point, we'll also prepare a Hanukkah at Kul, which will be combined with Advent celebrations jointly.
You're coming to conclusion?
And we are coming to a conclusion, which is actually a proposal, a very specific proposal. There are still many challenges, many opportunities ahead of us concerning the development of the Heschel Center and of the Jewish-Christian dialogue. Today, I'd like to invite all of the deans and professors gathered here, but also our students and professors of our university, to join us in our initiatives. Our cooperation may include jointly prepared scientific conferences, seminars, open meetings, lectures, exchange of academic staff. We can organize the exchange of students from Israel, the US, Poland, and the 3C countries to get to know one another better and to promote our cultures. We cordially invite you to work with us on the multimedia encyclopedia of the righteous, to organize working groups, to prepare together educational materials, exhibitions, and cultural events promoting Jewish-Christian dialogue. Through our cooperation, we have a chance to show our countries as a place of creative, interdisciplinary, and international scientific research. We can also present ourselves as promoters of religious, social, and cultural dialogue, which the contemporary world, torn by so many wars and conflicts, needs so desperately. Thank you so much for your attention.
Dziękuję bardzo. Wszyscy nasi prelegenci dzisiaj
Thank you. All of the speakers were not just extremely well spoken in the topics they covered, but also they were disciplined with time, which I appreciate, and thanks to which we have some time to have a discussion on the topics we've been discussing, we've been talking about, we've been hearing about until 11:45, when we will discuss the Declaration on Cooperation. I have a few questions for the speakers, but I wanted the audience to ask questions first. If there are no questions, I will step in with mine. There is a question, please give the microphone to the person who wants to ask a question. So introduce yourself and then ask the question, which will be interpreted into English or into Polish. Father Filip Krause, Theology Faculty, Plenipotentiary for Rector for International Cooperation. I'm responsible for the contacts. I shall switch into English because this is addressed to our international friends.
So much for Professor Chojnacki for bringing the topic of Magna Carta. We are signatory, our university is signatory of the Carta from 1988, which actually fulfilled in 2004. And our rector, who was then responsible for international affairs, signed it. But now we are a little bit puzzled, and thank you for bringing in the topic of freedom from. So we found our university, as you may be aware, and thank you, I don't know whether there is a representative of Peter Pázmány University from Hungary, and I think other universities were made aware at the point during pandemic time. It was not the best time for coming together for discussion about the Magna Carta, and these changes, alterations took us kind of by surprise. And the one you mentioned is what I don't think is what not the worst of them. I find one sentence very troubling. Universities question dogmas and establish doctrines. And what I believe it's quite unacceptable for any university founded in religious tradition. Of course, it's not about troublemaking, but about standing for our research and values we are behind. And that's why so far our university did not sign the 2020 edition. I'm not in force and authority to give any advice, but at the same time, I believe this forum is quite good to ponder or discuss whether we can go back and revisit this topic of Magna Carta, because I was promised by the secretary, because there was quite documented correspondence going between our university and them, to say that we need to discuss it. It's not good for any, because we also have Europe is also, Erasmus exchanges, Turkey's, different countries, how to explain it to Muslims, how to explain it to Christians of different denominations. How do we define dogma, and how should we question it? If it is dogmatic Maoism, of course, but if it's Catholic dogma we research and drive our tradition from, I think it's quite puzzling. Thank you so much.
Odpowiem po polsku, żeby...
I'll answer it in English. I'll give my answer in English. I have to say that I'm happy. I haven't mentioned that John Paul II Catholic University of Lublin is a signatory of Magna Carta, and thank you for reminding us of this fact. I'm happy it was brought up. Whenever we're dealing with various religious experiences and political attitudes, I think it is our task, whenever discussing such charters, Magna Carta, we need to remember about persevering with our identity. I'll call it apologia, but not apologia as a besieged fortress in this understanding, but an apologia that enters a dialogue. As a dean of theological faculty, I have positive experiences with cooperating with Turkish University of Batman, and Islamic theology is taught at that university. But because there are religious minorities, Christian minorities in the area of that university, the cooperation at the scientific level is thriving. And also in terms of intercultural or inter-religious understanding, and thanks to the cooperation, we're able to reach Christian minorities and enter a cooperation with them. So I would say that we need to understand our own identity, apologia of that identity, but it needs to be open to dialogue. These two elements are necessary if we want to sign any documents at all or commit ourselves to anything and to similar declaration or manifests. If we understand that signing a document like that always has to do with an element of preserving our identity, our apologia, and entering a dialogue that is needed to understand not just other cultures or religions, but entering a dialogue is important to understand, to be part of the modern world. As Lisbon University rector, we shouldn't treat university as something to be preserved, as something that's supposed to survive, but we should be striving to develop a university, and we shouldn't be afraid of modern days. Christian churches have always been progenitors and advocates of change, and they were one step ahead of the cultural developments in the world. So why not allow something like that happen now, and be in the avant-garde of the changes in terms of spiritual and educational facets. We should realize that, come back to doing that, and become an advocate or a protagonist, a driver, an agent shaping the changes nowadays. And also come across all the crises like wars and various other conflicts, because we enter, or we are engaged in a dialogue at a social level or spiritual level. We may be on the way to building a theology of peace. So if I could complement this statement, there is nothing to be ashamed of. Theology is an area of search. It's a huge body of work that we've been amassing for centuries. And at theology faculties and outside of those, it is being amassed still. It's a richness of societies, richness of humanity. There are isolated cases, statements. This happened at the University of Silesia in Poland, that deny the existence of theology. They want to take it out of universities. But we need to say it. Universities began with theology, and without theology, universities will not be able to function properly. So let's not be threatened. Let's not be put down, put to shame, because the quality of our research is high. It isn't true that theologians talk about non-existing beings or create new prayers. This is not true. We are much more than that. So, dear all, if there are any questions, please ask them now. Father Professor Mirosław Wróbel is our new director of the Institute of Biblical Sciences. Thank you for the introduction. I'm happy that this Congress of 3Cs theologians is taking place, and this is a kairos in our times. The times of tension, the times of war, the times of being torn apart, and Europe and the Middle East being torn apart. But I wanted to express my reflection and then ask my question. We're here today mainly to share experiences and together look for a foundation that would bring us together. As the director of Biblical Sciences Institute at this university, I wanted to point to the Bible. The Bible being a value, a base, a soul of theology. The Bible is leading us to the truth, is something that is bringing us closer, that's allowing us to build relationships. In Poland, we're facing a difficult situation. A new discipline has been created, biblical sciences, and it's been made separate from other disciplines. The Bible is no longer treated as myths, legends, literary fiction. The Bible is now treated as a, legitimate branch of science, and 14 employees of the university declared their affiliation with biblical scientists, and the first of October, the Institute of Biblical Sciences of the Catholic University of Lublin was established, and we are already underway. We're doing research into the Bible. So I wanted to invite you, if you are willing to cooperate, so that we together are promoting various projects, various initiatives aimed at creating new editions of the Bible, new translations of the Bible. There are countries quite close who have no translations of the Bible into their own languages. We need to be thinking about how to accommodate the areas and the people who live in the war-torn areas. We need to be thinking about how to build a base that will serve the development of theology, that will help us answer the most profound questions. And I wanted to encourage you to co-create, cooperate, create communities that could operate internationally, especially here in the Central and Eastern Europe. Communities that could build not just Polish but European foundation, a base of Bible studies. A question to Father Marcin. What is the impact of the Jewish commentary on the New Testament in contemporary times? So please answer this question for the listeners here. How is it perceived? Because it is something cutting edge and new in this part of Europe. Thank you. So I shall answer in English. The majority of us listening are listening in Polish. It's an interesting initiative of a Christian Hebrew commentary on Sunday evangelists. We Christians have no trouble commenting on the Old Testament. However, the Jews have problems with reading the New Testament, let alone commenting on it in the spirit of a dialogue between the Jewish and the Christian. But these are new times. We see partners in Orthodox Jews. We cooperate in the United States and in Israel with Orthodox Jewish scholars who want to read the New Testament together with us and who want to issue, we issue every week Jewish commentary on the New Testament writings, their sensitivity, is something that we value. On the other hand, Christians, because the other part of the commentators are Christians, we are bringing our understanding of New Testament, taking into account the Jewish perspective. So it's a new form of dialogue, and it's been noticed. American Association of Bible Scholars wanted to join the project. Also, Episcopacy Conference in the US also wants to promote the project and write about it on their website. We're expanding. We're inviting new countries. We want it to be an international project and a reason to start a dialogue. We know that there are millions of views of these comments. Millions of people have read them. So it's a sign for us that we should continue doing that. So we welcome you to take part. And that way you've become influencers, kind of. Do we have any other questions? Father Dean Nowosad. Thank you. My name is Sławomir Nowosad. I'm with the Catholic University of Lublin.
To our guests from abroad as well, so if you let me, I'll do it in English. Professor Ulevicius mentioned Oxford and Cambridge as important theological centers, of course, centers of studies in theology in Britain. But I wonder if you know that the Faculty of Theology in Oxford now is called Faculty of Theology and Religious Studies. And that has changed recently. And the same happened to another very important university, which is a Catholic University in Leuven. Catholic University in Leuven, which, as we know, probably is the oldest Catholic university in the world, founded in 1425. Their Faculty of Theology is now Faculty of Theology and Religious Studies. When I asked them why They said, well, we have no choice. There are no students who want to come and study here Catholic theology. So we have to introduce full programs in non-Christian religions as well as individual lecture courses. Do you think that may happen to our faculties of theology in Lithuania or any other countries, or perhaps even in Szczecin? That our Faculty of Theology at the University of Szczecin may one day be called Faculty of Theology and Religious Studies. I don't think that will happen here, because Father Dean will see to it that it will remain the Catholic theology faculty. Anyway, are you optimistic about the future of your faculties of theology? Thank you.
Thank you. That's very timely question. And our experience at our faculty is we experience this on two different fronts. Of course, we have religion studies, but we have in mind completely different thing than secular religious studies. Our religious studies are fit for training catechists and religious teachers for schools of Catholic theology, Catholic religion. So it's more Catholic religious studies, and this brings some confusion when we discuss with our colleagues, let's say in anthropology, about this. But about 5 years ago, we thought about that, and we decided to create a program of religious studies per se in secular terms. We kind of understood that these programs are being created by people who, let's put it mildly, they're not friends of church. So how about we do that program? We invite expert in Islam, expert in Buddhism, and Christianity, of course, would be taught at our faculty for those who don't want to study theology. And it ended very interestingly. There were about 50 people interested in this program. They asked about that program. They registered for that program, but none of them entered because they had other choices. So it appeared in Lithuanian setting that people are interested in some people are interested increasingly in religions, but they are not. They find their information on YouTube or wherever else. They don't come to study it or do scientific research. There are very few, and these few people are not enough to maintain the program or turn the whole faculty into. This is not a big issue in Lithuania right now. Maybe because mainly statistically Lithuania is still considered Catholic country, and there is not real demand. Rather rhetorical discussions are happening, and it's okay. But real demand is not there. Our colleagues in anthropology, they don't have students in these programs.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, the time is running, and we cannot take more questions. But we can thank cordially and loudly to our today's speakers, Father Professor Grzegorz Chojnacki. Reverend Professor Janez Wodiczar. Reverend Professor Adrian Podaru. Reverend Professor Wilhelm Dancia. Reverend Deacon Professor Benas Ulevicius. And Reverend Professor Marcin Kowalski. Szanowni Państwo,
Ladies and gentlemen, I will switch to Polish because we have one more thing on our agenda. It's signing of the declaration of cooperation between the theologians of the Three Seas countries. We decided not to have a general discussion between individual signatories in this particular room. It was probably a very good decision because it took us about 3 hours, which wouldn't be so easy to do here. Why do we actually need this declaration? What's its aim and purpose? It's a kind of manifesto of our will. We want, as theologians, to declare the deepening of the cooperation between us. In order to be a country within this Three Seas region, you don't really have to have access to the sea, but the whole initiative refers to the countries between the Three Seas, between the Adriatic, Baltic, and the Black Sea. Dear guests, dear Congress participants, let us show the declaration. I will read it in English because this was our agreement that it will be formed in English. It is formulated precisely in that particular language. When we will sign the declaration, I will present it in Polish.
between theologians of the Three Seas countries. Between 23rd and 27th October 2023, a Congress of Theologians of the Three Seas countries, bringing faith and theology closer, was held in Lublin, Poland, and the John Paul II Catholic University of Lublin. It brought together theologians from countries located in the area between the Baltic Sea, the Black Sea, and the Adriatic Sea: Croatia, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, and Ukraine. The above initiative follows on from the 1991 meeting of theologians of Eastern European countries and the Forum of Theologians of Central and Eastern Europe, held from 2001 to 2011. The countries of the Three Seas areas, which experienced devastating ideological destruction by totalitarian systems in the 20th century, regained their independence and realized both their historical and cultural uniqueness, as well as the need for economic and cultural cooperation, coupled with the integration of the European space, based on enhancing communication and exchange of ideas, as well as strengthening human relationships. The integration of any space, however, cannot be reduced to mere political negotiations and economic arrangements, for then it remains merely a system of bureaucratic procedures. It must become, above all, a community of spirit, sharing common values that flows for us, above all, from the gospel of Christ, and lead to the formation of a common identity. Hence arises the task facing the churches and theologians to promote this integration by discovering common theological loci and seeking ways to live the Christian faith in this particular place in the world. The mission of theologians of the Three Seas countries is twofold: to guide the efforts of Christians in making the countries belonging to it a space of justice, peace, and responsibility for creation, and to provide an example of a just, peaceful, and responsible society for other regions of the world. As Christians, together with all people of goodwill, we stand in solidarity with brothers and sisters suffering from war in various parts of the world, especially in Ukraine. The Three Seas Theologians boast many outstanding prophets, including Saint Cyril and Methodius and their disciples, who as early as more than 1,100 years ago traveled the Three Seas region, spreading Christian faith and values, creating tools for civilizational changes, and affirming the cultural distinctiveness of its peoples. The idea of Cyril and Methodius transcended the contemporary boundaries of theological thinking and contributed to the development of Christian culture in countries previously on the periphery. It became a tradition that inspired successive generations of theologians and provided them with answers to the most perennial questions about the relationship between faith, culture, and mission. Church leaders from the Christian East and West referred to this heritage in their teaching about the two lungs of Europe, of the Church. The Congress of Theologians of the Three Seas countries is a manifestation of a community of experience, a search for elements of a common tradition, and the reading of the signs of the times. It is an initiative to discover the scholarly, cultural, and social potential that would provide the churches as well as political and social leaders with the impetus to carry out their mission. The Three Seas Theologians want to jointly contribute to upholding and developing the spiritual and intellectual heritage of Christianity in their countries of origin. The undersigned theologians present at the Congress declare their willingness for collaboration that will find expression in sustaining the cooperation and the desire to get to know each other better and better, which will be made concrete in conducting joint theological research and issuing joint publications, organizing conferences, exchanging academic staff and students, and striving for active participation in important areas of social, cultural, and religious life. Given in Lublin on the 27th of October in the year of our Lord 2023. Obecnych tu księży rektorów, dziekanów,
All the deans, professors that are present here, I would like to invite to the table here, and they can sign the declaration. They can sign it with their full names and providing the institution, the name of the institution they are affiliated with.
Dobrze. Wojciech. Zdjęcie nie potem tobie. Dobra.
Szanowni Państwo,
Dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to have your attention for a while yet. Now the declaration will be read in Polish. Later on, I would like to ask all the signatories. We will take a joint photo. And now priest Karol Godlewski will read the declaration in Polish.
W dniach od 23 do 27 października 2023 roku odbył się w Polsce, w Lublinie, w Katolickim Uniwersytecie Lubelskim Jana Pawła II Kongres Teologów Krajów Trójmorza Wiara i Teologia bliżej nas. Zebrali się teologowie z krajów leżących na obszarze pomiędzy Morzem Bałtyckim, Morzem Czarnym i Morzem Adriatyckim, z Chorwacji, Czech, Litwy, Polski, Rumunii, Słowacji, Słowenii, Ukrainy i Węgier. Powyższa inicjatywa nawiązuje do spotkania teologów krajów Europy Wschodniej w 1991 roku oraz Forum Teologów Europy Środkowo-Wschodniej organizowanych w latach 2001-2011. Kraje obszaru Trójmorza w XX wieku poddane wyniszczającej destrukcji ideologicznej systemów totalitarnych odzyskały swoją niezależność i uświadomiły sobie zarówno swą wyjątkowość historyczną i kulturową, jak też dostrzegły potrzebę współpracy ekonomicznej i kulturowej, integracji przestrzeni środkowoeuropejskiej, opierając się o rozwój komunikacji i wymianę myśli oraz zacieśnianie wzajemnych powiązań ludzkich. Integracja jakiejkolwiek przestrzeni nie może się jednak sprowadzać tylko do negocjacji politycznych i ustaleń gospodarczych. Pozostaje bowiem wtedy jedynie systemem biurokratycznych procedur. Musi stawać się przede wszystkim wspólnotą ducha, podzielaniem wspólnych wartości wypływających dla nas nade wszystko z Ewangelii Chrystusa i prowadzić do kształtowania wspólnej tożsamości. Stąd też wynika stojące przed kościołami i teologami zadanie budowania tej integracji poprzez odkrywanie wspólnych miejsc teologicznych i poszukiwanie dróg przeżywania wiary chrześcijańskiej w tym konkretnym miejscu na świecie. Misja teologów krajów Trójmorza jest dwojaka. Kierowania wysiłków chrześcijan w czynieniu należących do niego krajów przestrzenią sprawiedliwości, pokoju i odpowiedzialności za stworzenie oraz kształtowania przykładu sprawiedliwego, pokojowego i odpowiedzialnego społeczeństwa dla innych regionów świata. Jako chrześcijanie wraz ze wszystkimi ludźmi dobrej woli solidaryzujemy się z braćmi i siostrami cierpiącymi z powodu wojny w różnych częściach świata, szczególnie na Ukrainie. Teologowie Trójmorza mają wielu wybitnych proroków. Wśród nich święci Cyryl i Metody oraz ich uczniowie już ponad 1100 lat temu przemierzali przestrzeń Trójmorza, krzewiąc chrześcijańską wiarę i wartości, tworząc narzędzia przemian cywilizacyjnych i afirmując kulturową odrębność jej narodów. Idea cyrylo-metodiańska przekraczała współczesne jej granice teologicznego myślenia i przyczyniała się do rozwoju kultury chrześcijańskiej w krajach będących dotychczas na peryferiach. Stała się tradycją inspirującą kolejne pokolenia teologów, znajdujących w niej odpowiedź na najdawniejsze pytania o relacje między wiarą, kulturą i misją. Do tego dziedzictwa odwoływali się w nauczaniu o dwóch płucach Europy zwierzchnicy kościołów chrześcijańskiego wschodu i zachodu. Kongres Teologów Krajów Trójmorza jest manifestacją wspólnoty doświadczeń, poszukiwania elementów wspólnej tradycji i odczytywania znaków czasu. Jest inicjatywą odkrywania potencjału naukowego, kulturowego i społecznego, który dostarczy kościołom i przywódcom politycznym i społecznym impuls dla prowadzenia swej misji. Teologowie Trójmorza chcą wspólnie przyczyniać się do podtrzymania i rozwoju duchowego oraz intelektualnego dziedzictwa chrześcijaństwa w krajach, z których pochodzą. Niżej podpisani, obecni na kongresie teologowie deklarują wolę współdziałania, które będzie się wyrażało w podtrzymywaniu współpracy, pragnieniu coraz lepszego poznawania się i będzie mogło się ukonkretniać w podejmowaniu wspólnych naukowych badań teologicznych, wspólnych publikacji, organizowaniu konferencji, w wymianie kadry naukowej i studentów oraz w dążeniu do aktywnego uczestnictwa w ważnych obszarach życia społecznego, kulturowego i religijnego. Dan w Lublinie dnia 27 miesiąca października roku pańskiego 2023.